Here to discuss the state's fiscal problems is Illinois Comptroller Dan Hynes.
Unfortunately, every day there are providers, social service providers, healthcare providers, small businesses doing business with the state that call us desperate because they're going to miss a debt payment of their own or a payroll of their own, and we try to work with them on a case-by-case basis. But the fact is, we have $4 billion in bills that we can't pay right now because we have an imbalanced budget. We have not engaged in responsible budgeting over the years, and then this national recession is making it worse.
Where do we stand as a state compared to Michigan or Indiana or a host of others? Are we worse?
I'd say we're worse because we failed in the good years, the strong economic years, to prepare for this inevitable downturn in the economy. I was preaching from one of my first years in office to create a fully funded rainy day fund, to put $1 billion into a rainy day fund for this very day and for this very circumstance so that we could weather a financial storm. But my advice was ignored, and the budgets continue to be passed unbalanced, and we run deficit spending. And then when the economy slows down as it has, that's when the bottom drops out, and that's where we are. Then you're going to hurt those very same programs when the economy slows down, which is what's happening now. Our healthcare system is collapsing because people can't get in to see a doctor because doctors don't want to participate in our program because they don't get paid. I spent a good part of October traveling all over Illinois. We had 5 hearings in every part of the state to talk to people who are in our Medicaid program who told us they couldn't get in to see a doctor, and we listened to their stories. These are mothers who can't get their kids in to see a dentist for years. People who can't get in to see a neurologist or a specialist. People have to travel 100 miles to get in to see a doctor or to wait 6 months for an appointment. They're promised health care, but they're not getting it because providers aren't participating because they're not getting paid. What I've proposed is a first step, but not a final solution, is for the state to engage in short-term borrowing, to borrow maybe $2 billion to pay down this backlog and repay it within the year, within 12 months. Second, though, is to work towards getting some more assistance from the federal government. I wrote a letter to Senator Durbin and then Senator Obama asking for states to get some relief out of the federal government. They're bailing out the financial industry. It's time for states to get some assistance. And then finally, we have to work on a long-term solution and make some tough decisions. And that requires consensus and leadership, and we're not getting either of those out of Springfield.
You had some pretty tough words for the governor in April in a speech. You said, quote, "The economy is slowing, our revenues are disappearing, the deficit is worsening, our infrastructure is crumbling, our backlogs are growing, and all the while, our governor, he's hiding." Is that a fair assessment?
I would say, I mean, we hear about Governor Schwarzenegger every day, appealing to the federal government, proposing something to deal with their situation, and we're hearing nothing out of our governor's office. He came out with a plan yesterday that was just, really had no any seriousness to it at all. Finally, put aside the petty differences and the personality conflicts and deal with this crisis because people are hurting. Legislative leaders and the governor don't meet at all, so it's become so dysfunctional, which is bad enough, but when dysfunctional turns into destructive, that's when I think people should be outraged. The fact that so many names are being mentioned is because people are clamoring, longing for new leadership out of the governor's office. So that much I can certainly confirm, and I think that's really what it speaks to. What the other constitutional officers are going to do, what I'm going to do, I think will probably be revealed after the new year. Right now I'm focused on this crisis, and it really is a crisis. I mean, we have a catastrophe in the making here. We have businesses that are going to go out of business. We have providers walking away from our health care program. We have social service agencies desperate for payment. And I asked the General Assembly to pass emergency legislation to deal with this, and I hope they do, because if they don't, we're going to find ourselves in March with an absolute disaster on our hands. Sometimes it takes a crisis maybe to get people's attention, and that's why I alerted to the legislative leaders and the governor to this crisis in the making, where we have $4 billion, soon to be $5 billion in bills that we can't pay. Providers waiting 12 to 15 weeks. And maybe that will get everyone's attention and then get everybody on the dime to do something about it. I do think that the most in need are going to suffer the most here because they rely on state services to get through their daily lives. But this is all of our problem. If you send your child to a public school, you should be concerned about this because our schools are going to suffer because of our failure of budgeting properly and our cash flow problems. If you care about the community you live in, you should be concerned because our payments to local governments, like the city of Chicago, are being delayed because of these problems. This has an enormous ripple effect that affects all of us. But I agree that those who rely on government the most are going to be hurt the most, and that's really unfortunate. I think that just having a new person at the helm in the Senate is going to help. Maybe just change the personality dynamics, because that's really what the problem has been, the power struggle and the personality clashes. So I'm hopeful that just no matter who gets that president of the Senate spot, that it will give us a clean slate and a new start in the new year. The governor needs to step up and show some leadership. And it starts by bringing the leaders together and saying, we got to let go of all of the past disputes, all of the conflicts, and start putting people first. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. We've got to start putting the people first, and this crisis has to be dealt with by our leaders.
All right, Dan Hynes, thank you very much, State Controller.